In our last episode, we looked at part 3 of the speaking exam. In this episode, let's switch things up and look at lingo or language for task 1, academic writing. Hey guys, welcome to episode 32 of Hacking IELTS. If you're joining us for the first time, this is a podcast and a YouTube channel dedicated to helping new and intermediate IELTS test takers understand the exam and attain higher results. Okay, let's switch things up a little bit and look at lingo or language for task 1, academic writing. But first, let's recap all that we learned from our last lesson regarding part 3 of the speaking exam. First, the topic of part 3 should be a natural progression building on part 2. The examiner should be selecting and creating questions for your discussion that continue along the same theme from the last section of the test. We also need to understand that you need to speculate or hypothesize after hearing the examiner's question. One very important point you need to remember is that the questioning will be related to community or society in general, and that the line of questioning will not be specifically aimed at seeking a response about you and your life personally. Just try to keep in mind that part 3 will be related to people in social groups, possibly their problems, and perhaps solutions. Remember to think big picture, guys, and to use vocabulary that can help get your point across in a genuine and intelligent manner. Be really careful of throwing around big words that you think are being used properly, as this can actually detract from your speaking score. Oh yeah, and another no-no is memorizing scripted responses. Memorizing scripts will cost you in the long run. You are far better off if you spend consistent time acquiring regular vocabulary and expressions, and then knowing how to use them. But what if you're stumped on one of the questions for the dialogue? You really don't know what to say. You could ask the examiner to repeat the question to buy you more time. Second, you could use fillers to provide you with a bit more thinking time. Refer to episode 31 for more information about fillers. All right, we discussed lingo or specific language for the dialogue of the speaking test. Let's switch back over to academic writing, specifically focusing on language for task 1. To review, task 1 for academic writing requires you to analyze and report the main trends for a given diagram, which can range from a bar graph to a pie chart, flow chart, line graph, or even maps. Once again, it's important to understand the requirement of an overview, which should occur in the first or the final paragraph of your report. We need to also emphasize the importance of not providing your opinion, since this is strictly an analysis of what information the diagram is showing us. It's not open for interpretation, guys. So our response can only be objective rather than subjective. So far, so good? You guys remember this stuff, don't you? Do you recall what the word count is? If you guessed 150 words, then that is absolutely correct. Make sure that you have at least 150 words or more and that you finish writing your response in 20 minutes. Let's now get into the lingo or language of task 1 writing. Since this task requires you to write formally and intelligently, let's first discuss what we don't want to do. First, we don't want to use contractions for either task 1 or task 2. Contractions are largely implemented for informal writing and pretty much reflects the method most native speakers employ for everyday colloquial speech. In other words, this is the type of language used on YouTube, movies, TV, you get the picture. Second, as mentioned earlier, we don't want to use any types of language that suggest your opinions or how you feel. Consequently, avoid language such as, I believe, I think, in my opinion, I feel that. Third, we don't want to list every single detail, date, time, percentage, or other data we can observe on the diagram. We only want to focus on the main trends, how data is visibly different, has changed dramatically, and cannot be argued about. Let's focus on what we do want to use for task 1. First, we need to have that overview, which will summarize the diagram briefly. It needs to be general and not go into details. Second, we need to use verbs that are appropriate for the diagram or graph. For example, would we use words like skyrocket or plummet for a pie chart? Probably not. These examples would be much more suitable for a bar or a line graph, where we can see a visual representation that could be occurring over a certain amount of time. And time is linear, meaning it's moving forward in one direction, unless you have a time machine. Okay, let's have a look at directions of trends. First, if the line graph is going up, we want to use verbs such as rise, increase, or go up. If there's a dramatic change going upwards, we could use skyrocket. On the other hand, what if the bar or line starts to drop? We could write decrease, decline, fall, dip, drop, or if it's really extreme, plummet. And if there's no visible change at all, then we could use remain stable, remain constant, flatline, or plateau. Where a line or a bar on a graph tends to rise and fall, we could use fluctuate. This covers just some of the verbs that could be used. Now, let's take a look at some nouns and noun phrases. Once again, if there seems to be a movement upwards, we could use a rise or an increase. Conversely, for the opposite, we could use a decline, a decrease, a dip, a drop, or a fall. If we have no change and the line or bar graph is static, we may write there is a leveling off, or perhaps no change is evident. In addition to these verbs, nouns, and noun phrases, we might also want to express by how much or to what degree is there an evident change. In this case, we should use adverbs that describe the actions. Let's look at some examples now. In Dubai, the temperature drops dramatically from November to March to approximately 25 degrees in the afternoon. After a significant fall in December to around 22 degrees, the temperature sharply increases in April to over 30 degrees Celsius. Over the next 3 months, we see a slight increase as temperatures exceed 30 degrees upwards to north of 35 degrees. However, by August, we can expect the heat to skyrocket up to temperatures of 45 or 50 degrees Celsius. In stark contrast, temperatures in Alberta, Canada, where I'm from, are completely opposite. From September until October, the autumn temperature will remain constant at approximately 20 degrees, but tends to plummet by the end of December, occasionally dropping south of minus 40 degrees in January. By the spring, temperatures gradually increase to 20 degrees until finally peaking at 25 to 30 degrees for the summer months. This example is just to demonstrate the use of adverbs, but remember, when you're given a graph, do not document every minor change or development. You need to figure out what the main trends are and write about these interesting areas. If you're provided with a graph over the period of 7 days, you do not want to list every detail for every single day. In the same manner, we wouldn't want to describe information for every single month over a 1-year bar graph. Once again, identify the main trends and then demonstrate in what manner these trends stick out. Show in what manner the trends are interesting, not why, giving your opinion, as we discussed earlier in this lesson. Okay, this wraps up things for this week. Did this episode help you out? Let me know in the comments section on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe for new videos like this every week. Or be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. You can also sign up for free courses over at hackingielts.com. Take care, guys, and catch you in the next one.